Every year I swear that things aren't gonna get any crazier, but they did.
Holy shit.
Whoa!
Okay.
Most people start their ski season when their local resort starts spinning the chairlifts for the year, but not me. The ski season starts for me when the snow first falls from the sky, and this year I had my finger on the pulse of the sea to sky snowfall and linked a spot storm in late September. I hiked a dubious ridge and found a little dusting of snow, a couple centimeters plastered across the giant summer sun cups. And was it deep? Nope. Was it worth it? 100%. Powder is powder.
Woo! I'm so stoked.
Now that little September teaser had me so fired up that when the second storm of the season hit, I went sprinting to find turns in the high alpine that were completely fresh without a summer snow base. And let's just say this was one of the shallowest powder days of my entire life. Stupid idea? Absolutely. Fun? Weirdly? Yes. After skiing on nothing but shrubberies, I waited patiently for a proper storm, and finally it hit. The heavens opened up and the Alpine got nuked in Whistler. I grabbed the lads and we headed out for a beautifully but sketchy shark-infested ski tour that resulted in me practicing my tumbling and limbering up for the remainder of this season. Now, I was very grateful to have survived that Olympic-level tumbling display and lived to ski another day. So when the next storm came, I learned absolutely nothing and decided to head right up to Cyprus to be the first guy to ski on the North Shore for the ski season. And I scraped my skis the entire way down. At this point, it became very clear to me that I had about as much ski base left as I had brains, and I decided on the next storm I was going out again, except this time our backcountry mission blew off for real. I hopped on the back of Sid's truck on a boat seat and he drove me through a pile of flaming logs, and we managed to make our way up to one of the gnarliest preseason lines I've ever skied. And following it, we exited the Alpine in one of the most incredible ski sunsets of all time. Skiing a sunset like that would be the perfect end to a ski season. I mean, honestly, I could have called it there. What an incredible experience. I was so grateful for it. But the season was only just getting started, and Norquay announced on Instagram that they would be the first to open out of the ski big three. So I booked a flight immediately, went to the airport, and then found out by Instagram post that Norquay was not opening. I should have expected this. They told me there's a 50-50 chance they were gonna open or not open, and I didn't get cancellation on my flight, which is dumb, you know? So I went home and felt like hanging up the towel, but only a few hours later, I saw a post from Lake Louise saying they'd be opening in just a few days. So as quick as I went to the airport, I was back in the F1 Shifty, praying it wouldn't break down and driving to catch first chair at Lake Louise. Opening day at Lake Louise was absolutely wicked as per usual, and all the locals were going off, messing around in the park, just having a good time. So stoked to get our ski edges back on snow. And the next day, Sunshine Village decided to keep up with the buzz of opening days and started spinning the strawberry chairlift. I wasn't the first in line, but I was pretty far up in line and managed to get some fresh tracks underneath the strawberry chair. I also met a mysterious man with a mustache in line, also known as Big Tim Reloaded. He hadn't skied in about 5 years, and the second he clipped into the snow, he was already going inverted, front flips, back flips, spinning around, and he put on the most diabolical display of preseason skiing my eyes will ever be blessed enough to witness. Now, I don't discriminate when it comes to mountain openings, and the Kiska opening was just around the corner, so I hung out in Banff for a little while, which is a really easy thing to do, believe it or not. It's quite beautiful there. And I skied Nikiska, the fastest ski resort in Canada. It didn't have a ton of snow yet, but it always has that one. Groomer absolutely bustling, and I had a blast feeling my edges out again. But then it was time for the big show. Whistler Blackcomb was opening, and I buzzed home while Whistler was getting absolutely nuked with cold, dry November snow, and it was set to be one of the wildest openings of all time. And let me tell you, it was. Whistler Blackcomb surprised everyone with a Blackcomb opening first, and I could not have asked for a deeper and more fun opening day. But the craziness didn't just stop there. The following day, Whistler Blackcomb opened, and it was just as deep, light, and dry. It's pretty hard to start a season with conditions this exceptional because you don't really know where it's even gonna go from there. The locals were so tired after both opening days that by the Sunday, a weekend day with even more storm skiing, almost everyone was off the mountain. It was practically empty because no one's quads and shins could handle the pounding that was needed to ski pow that earlier in the season. But I was grateful that I had prepped my quads and my shins doing all that rock skiing in the preseason. At this point, I almost had a full season of pow skiing under my belt, but I just was craving more, and I noticed that Revelstoke was also storming and just about to open up. My truck wasn't in the best of conditions, and it was in the shop, and it was super serendipitous. This van company, Karma Camper Vans, reached out to me and asked if I wanted to test out one of their decked out Ford Transit vans with an internal heater, and obviously I said an immediate yes. So I buzzed out to Revelstoke in my first ever camper van to experience the complete luxury that wasn't sleeping in my truck. I arrived in Revelstoke and the slum did not disappoint. It was absolutely hilarious, with tents littering the lift line apparently from days prior in order to get the first Gandhi up Revelstoke Mountain Resort. People were having fires in line, and I was giving everyone sips of hot sauce to prepare for the next day. And when the next day came, it was good. Really good. And I had one of the most spiritual pow laps in the Tally-Ho Glades at Revelstoke in my entire life. It was deep and dry and unconsolidated, and I had absolutely nothing in the world to complain about. The next day was just as good. Unlike Whistler, which takes a few weeks for the Alpine to open, Revelstoke opened all of their Alpine the next day, the second day they were open, and the Greeley Bowl continued to be gangbustered. I scored fresh laps all day long and got super creative with it in the trees. That evening, I was editing a video for all of you in a Tim Hortons, and I got an Instagram DM from a guy called Mishi Boy. And Mishi Boy asked if I wanted to ski the Revelstoke slack country the next day. I looked at the forecast, and with an incredible inversion on the horizon, I said, let's do it, man. So we went out and had a killer touring day in the Revelstoke slack country. We skied a beautiful mix of lines and were blessed with the perfect pow snow, and I was awarded with one of my favorite face shots of the entire season. Mish and I had so much fun together that we decided we may as well ski the next day, so I met him in the van in Rogers Pass, and we embarked on the Little Sifton Traverse. This was my first time ever using pin bindings, and I was extremely skeptical, but the lighter weight felt absolutely fabulous on one of my first longer tours of the ski season, and man, is it gorgeous in Rogers Pass. There's not many places in the world that can make your snow senses tingle like that place. And after a solid bushwhack and a delightful beer at sunset by the van, I said goodbye to Revelstoke, which is always hard, and blasted straight for Sun Peaks. After a week straight of powder skiing, I didn't quite know what groomers were, but when I showed up at Sun Peaks, I quickly remembered and enjoyed some of my favorite groomed terrain in all of British Columbia. It was a perfect, sunny, and somewhat slushy ski day, but the entire mountain was open, and I had a blast skiing all of the new terrain in the West Bowl and all of the stuff on the Crystal Chair in perfect corn. Karma Camper Vans needed the van back, and after a few evenings of trying to figure out how I could run away with the van, I decided it was best to just thank them for their generosity and hand them the van over in Vancouver, which I did. But on the way, I stopped for a sunset ski with the one and only adventure Rob. We enjoyed an after hours pop off the flute summit and enjoyed a few turns right down one of our favorite bowls in Whistler Blackcomb, and started dreaming about the next powder day and when the drought would finally break. And the good thing about Whistler Blackcomb, it doesn't stay dry for long, and the pow was falling once again. There was so much precipitation in the sea to sky that a mudslide actually started and blocked the highway, making for a very sleepy, somewhat country club skiing morning on the weekend at Whistler Blackcomb. But I didn't stay home very long because I've always got places to see and things to ski, and I decided that this storm was a great time to try and go back to a classic Mount Baker. I hadn't skied there in many years, and I knew it was a gamble going on a warmer storm day, but I rolled the dice, showed up, and went into the biggest soup fest of the season. I got soaked, went through 2 ski suits, but had an awesome time and was reminded how epic Mount Baker is. But it also reminded me of how long it takes for your gear to dry after a day at Mount Baker, and I waited patiently for my gear to dry until the next storm hit Whistler Blackcomb. But the next set of storms was mixed precipitation, and this is nothing new for us people who live on the coast. A little bit of snow, a little bit of rain, but in between I managed to hit the Spanky's opening and skied some of my favorite lines in some really favorable conditions and had an awesome time until it rained some more on Whistler and the Christmas season set in. Whistler is an awesome place to be over Christmas break, but because Laura's pass was blacked out, we decided to do something a little different and go spend Christmas in one of the most beautiful places in all of Canada, Banff and Lake Louise. So I decided to take Laura on the dream ski trip, and we started it off in Lake Louise. We were running a different program than we normally would and optimizing for enjoyment more than we were maxing vertical, but it was great. We stopped for a few lunches here and there, enjoyed our after ski drinks, but also got some super fun and gorgeous skiing in at Lake Louise. Sunshine Village was no different. I can remember Laura asking me, "Why haven't you showed this to me? Why have you been hiding this to me?" when we skied our first sun-filled run on the Bye Bye Bowl. It was just absolutely incredible. But Banff wasn't the only stop on our ski trip itinerary. We followed it up with a trip to Fernie, where Laura conquered the corner pocket. We tacked on Kimberley, which is always a blast, and finished strong in Silver Star, where I surprised Laura with the nicest accommodations we've ever had in our lives. And no, I didn't pay for these accommodations. Thanks again for making me look like a hero, Silver Star. Silver Star is a guaranteed good time, and on my second day there, I linked up with a local legend, Tate Gerard, a pro freestyle skier who skis for Team Canada, and he showed me what it's like to have absolutely no fear and be able to flip off each and every object you see on a ski hill. He put on an incredible display of athleticism and free riding. Tate was without a doubt one of the best skiers I've ever ridden with, and I'm pretty sure he did more flips per minute than pancakes on a griddle in a Saturday morning at Denny's. And you know what a Saturday morning meal at Denny's makes you do? It makes you poop. So next up was the poop shoots. The boys and I hadn't seen each other in a while, so we planned for a ski touring day, and that led us to the Blackcomb backcountry as per usual. We decided to attempt a couloir we hadn't skied before, but it was extremely icy and we chose the wrong way to climb it, so we decided to call it a day and exit. But we were surprised when the poop chute skied so beautifully on our exit from the Blackcomb backcountry, and that stoked us up and made for a very successful day. The snow bases were starting to stack up across North America, and I decided to embark on the trip of a lifetime and surprise you with the camper van once again. Guess who's back? I had somehow coerced Karma Camper Vans to let me borrow the van for an entire month to head off to the United States of America to experience the best of American skiing, and off we went immediately to Colorado, fueled by ski sauce and roast chickens. I wasn't sure what to expect, but arriving in Telluride, my mind was blown. Fall line skiing galore and views everywhere you looked. I nearly ran out of oxygen hiking Palomar Peak, but I survived to ski another day, and it took another week of heavy breathing skiing to get used to the thin air in my sea lubber lungs. So as I was sucking air and snoring on the second morning of this massive ski journey, I was woken up before my alarm by the local police force who were worried I was a squatter, but they were kind enough not to give me a citation, and honestly, thanks to them, I woke up early enough to get a real early chair and was able to maximize the day and ski from opening to close on all the amazing terrain it had to offer. Crested Butte is loaded with expert terrain, but doesn't have that much snow. It's home to America's steepest man-made run, Rambo, which is absolutely hilarious. It's a tree-cut run, and it almost looks like they've grown trees on the run itself to just make it even more heinous for you to get down. It was funny to ski down, but I'm not sure I'd call that the steepest run in America. After Crested Butte, I went for a gorgeous, gorgeous drive through a canyon and wound up in Aspen, Snowmass. This place is the ritziest spot in all of skiing, and I knew I couldn't afford to stay in Aspen, so while I had the advantage of the van, I had to go ski the Aspens. I started in Snowmass, and it was so much fun. Comfortable chairs on the way up and big, wide, beautiful groomers on the way down. Some of the best groomed runs of the season were at Aspen Snowmass. They also had great mixed terrain. The Cirque I enjoyed, the Hanging Valley, and it's home to one of the greatest gladed blue runs from top to bottom in all of North America, minus peak to creek. I went for a swim at the community center, which of course was gorgeous, and when I walked back out to the van, I ran into a gentleman named Joe, now known as Crazy Joe to me, who sipped some hot sauce, and we decided to ski the next day at Aspen Highlands with his Uncle Tommy. Turns out Uncle Tommy is an absolute machine on skis, and his legs are made of iron for his age, and we went out skiing with him and followed him around his home zone. The zones he took us into were absolutely phenomenal, crushing the deep temerity, and he even hiked us into the Highlands Bowl. Aspen Highlands is an absolutely phenomenal place to shred. Crazy Joe was taking a day off, and I decided I was gonna go ski Vail by myself, so I went and skied about 50,000 vertical feet on Vail in a single day and got to experience what I would know as the epicenter of evil in the ski industry. Vail is as impressive as people make it sound. It's big, it's wide, but it's not all that burly. It's a pretty mellow spot with tons of chairlifts and tons of areas to ski, a lot of acreage, but nothing that really blew my mind. Now, the next day, my mind was blown when I met up with Crazy Joe at Breckenridge. It's a 0 to 100 kind of mountain. The bottom's kind of flat, and then it gets super steep, and Joe and I messed around on the steep areas. This was his home zone, so he showed me all the best pockets and the best spots to hang out on the mountain. And we jumped off cornices and skied steeps, and it was a blast. And Breckenridge has got some serious gnar terrain. It's super chill and mellow at the bottom, and then the winds are howling at the top with super steep terrain, making it all that more gnarly. Super fun. But all of a sudden, Crazy Joe and I smelt barbecue, so we tracked the scent of barbecue all the way to Arapahoe Basin, and man, was that place fun. A Basin did not disappoint. The terrain is phenomenal, the vibes are world class, and everyone was a blast to ski with there. A Basin would definitely be on my list for a home resort if I was skiing in Colorado, but a storm was tracking towards Jackson Hole, and I had to follow. I had enough of the drought skiing in Colorado and wanted to feel some powder underneath my planks, so I immediately busted my ass towards Jackson, and unfortunately, I got caught in a storm in Laramie and could not move. It wasn't a snowstorm, it was a windstorm, and the highway closed to high-profile vehicles, so I lived at a Walmart for just over 24 hours until they opened the highway again, and I busted it to Jackson. Unfortunately, I missed the brunt of the POW storm, but I still got some awesome skiing in the following day. That is one of the funnest resorts in North America. There is just so much exceptional terrain to be skied, and I enjoyed ripping with a Kiwi I met named Hugh. We had an epic day climbing around and skiing every possible corner of this ski resort. Just when I thought Jackson couldn't get any better, it ended up snowing the night that I was there. and I linked up with two local lads, Brooks Curran and Bobby Havlin, and they showed me around their home resort the next day during a storm day, and it was so much fun. I couldn't see a thing, so it was great ripping around with a few locals who knew every possible pocket of the mountain. Initially, I wanted to hang out in Wyoming a little longer and ski Targhee, but I had my eyes watching the Utah storms, and I saw a storm coming in. So in an effort not to get stuck on the highway again, I left Wyoming and I left those windy highways and headed towards Utah. When I arrived in Utah, I made it a day before the storm. It was super dry, but it was sunny, so I decided to go explore Park City from one side on the canyons to the other on the Park City side. I had a blast skiing the Jupiter chair, even though it was some of the most miserable conditions I skied the entire season. But the next morning was not miserable. The next morning was glorious. I woke up bright and early, I mean like 3 a.m. early, drove up the Little Cottonwood Canyon and got in the parking lot for Snowbird and plopped myself right in the front of the gondola line, and I didn't regret a single minute of the sleep I lost. I finally had what I came on this trip for, a Utah powder day, and it didn't disappoint. Snowbird was absolutely amazing. Big, long, top to bottom power runs. Had the time of my life there. The lift lines were extremely long, but that wasn't anything that I wasn't used to. And I ended up spending the next day back at Snowbird with more snow and a bluebird sky. I absolutely nailed it. Enjoyed a mineral basin opening, enjoyed a Devil's Castle opening on the Alta side, and just really had the best possible weekend of skiing you could ask for at the Utah resorts. At this point, I just about decided that I wanted to ski Snowbird for the rest of my life, but I needed to explore Alta because I heard it was just as fun, and people weren't lying. Alta was amazing, and I somehow wound up there for when they opened the main chute for the first time of the season. Main chute is a super unique and epic chute to be sanctioned within a ski resort. Kind of reminds me of if like DOA was like a legal and open ski run for all resort skiers at Whistler Blackcomb. It would be pretty sweet. And the areas like Catherine's and the legendary runs like Elks High Rustler and Stone Crusher are just so fun at Alta. There's just so much great skiing to be done. I honestly could have just stayed and skied the rest of the season at Alta and Snowbird, but there was so much more to explore, and I had to go check out the Big Cottonwood Canyon. My expectations were already low, but they were blown out of the water when I visited Solitude. The name says it all, Solitude. I didn't really see that many people there and skied POW for most of the day. I was lucky enough to run into a homie named Orion, and we skied some of the day together and then planned to ski the next day together. I told him I was going to hit a place called Snow Basin, which as a Canadian I had never heard of, and he said he was down to join me. And even though it was minus 25, we still managed to ski POW lap after POW lap after POW lap, taking a few breaks to enjoy the beautiful amenities that Snow Basin had to offer, and then getting back after it and skiing more POW. I absolutely loved Snow Basin and thought it was a total sleeper. At this point in the road trip, gas money was getting pretty slim, but there were a few more spots I had to check off my big checklist, and that was Big Sky Montana. So I bombed into Montana with what I had left of gas money. The drive through Yellowstone was really sweet, and Big Sky was big. I saw the biggest wipeout of my life coming down Lone Peak, and I attempted to ski the Big Couloir, but they shut it down right before I was able to because of high winds. So I only got to ski one run down Lone Peak, but that's okay because Big Sky's loaded with lots of fun and aggressive terrain. It was absolutely freezing, and my frostbite was so bad after I got back to the van that I decided it was time to chase the big storm that was headed towards my home resort, Whistler Blackcomb. I was super sad giving the keys back for the Karma camper van, but the sadness didn't last for long, and my spirits were lifted by a package that came in from Nordica. They had just sent me the 120 millimeter Unleashed. This is their biggest, widest, funnest ski they've ever created, and thankfully I was able to get it and mount it at my local shop, Westside, right before the big storm came down. I got out on them a few days before the storm arrived and tested the ski, and let me tell you, it was fun. And a few days later, the storm came in with an absolute vengeance, and everyone was getting after it. Even Mother Alpine with her broken wing was skiing powder. The first day it came in a little later, and then the second day all hell broke loose and it was up to my nipples, tickling my testicles. Just an incredible day on snow, but I got a little too excited and lost my ski pole, I lost the camera, and I even lost the glove. It was totally ridiculous, but absolutely worth all of the chaos that ensued. Now, typically after a storm of this magnitude, I'd hang out in Whistler for a week or two just to make sure I got the best of the resort and the backcountry, but an email hit my inbox around that time from a company you might know called Patagonia, and I thought it was spam, such a big company reaching out to me. I was like, this has got to be spam, but I responded anyways, and it was not a hacker, it was actually Patagonia, and they invited me to come out to Silverton with their team and some other riders to test the POW Slayer ski system. And the POW Slayer system was awesome, but what was even more awesome was getting taken along to have an experience of a lifetime at one of the coolest resorts in North America. This place was like an abandoned western town, so I'm all decked out and given all this cool ass gear and skiing with all these amazing people in one of the coolest spots I've ever been. Hike 2 terrain off 1 chairlift in the sleepiest town in skiing some of the best snow you could imagine. And then we snuck out the next day after a great first ski day at Silverton Resort. We snuck out in the backcountry for a little bit of a climb to test out the gear even more. And let me tell you, that POW Slayer gear will surely be my daily driver this season, and that trip will be one I will not soon forget. Thanks again, Patagonia. I got back on a plane and flew back to sea level, and when I arrived home, my cousins were visiting from the East Coast, and I decided to see if a dad from the East Coast could survive a few Whistler POW days with me. And let me tell you, Mikhail did amazing. He absolutely shredded with me. Although he did have a couple massive tumbles, he kept up, did not slow me down, and we had a great time skiing together, proving that a dad from the East Coast absolutely can shred Whistler Blackcomb. I hadn't seen the boys in a while and I was missing them, so I shredded a little bit of a wet POW day with Jamesy boy, and we somehow ran into my long lost son Alex, who spent the rest of the day ripping the resort with us. Things were starting to get slushy on Whistler Blackcomb, and the snowfall was starting to settle down for the spring, so I decided to challenge myself and do something I'd been planning for a long time, to ski 100,000 vertical feet in a single day. Although I did my best skiing the same run bell to bell, I survived extreme boredom, but I did not manage to crush the 100,000 vertical feet goal. I left Whistler for a few days and decided to ski my old stomping ground, Grouse Mountain. It was as good as I remembered it. All of the off-piste runs flowed so smooth. The side hits were going hard. It was so much fun. I ripped with some local guys. It's just an incredible spot to ski. I love looking over the mountains, seeing the city, and I've got so many great memories skiing terrain park there when I was younger. I decided to keep the spring corn lap vibe going and check out Cypress Mountain. Believe it or not, it's just down the road from Grouse, but growing up in the lower mainland, for whatever reason, I never had a Cypress pass. I always had a Grouse pass, so it was my first time skiing Cypress Mountain. I can't believe I hadn't done it before. It's absolutely amazing and didn't disappoint. I had so much fun exploring all the terrain, enjoyed the amazing ocean views, and the corn harvest on the North Shore, honestly, is one of the best in all of Canada. Sometimes when the corn harvest starts, you think your season might be over, but never at Whistler Blackcomb. It started nuking once again. I enjoyed an empty spring POW day on the 120s. I skied some good old faithful lines and even made up some new lines and found some new spots on the Blackcomb side. It was an amazing day, and I decided to keep the good vibes going and shred the Whistler side the next day before the mountain closed. Things got pretty icy and the storm didn't come in as well as I had expected, and the snow was bad, but for some reason I felt compelled to ski the Coffin, and we all know how that went. I caught my tails on the rocks on the backside, and I absolutely exploded and imploded, flying over the cliff at the bottom and wrenching my ankle, tearing a couple tendons, ending my ski season. But as you've come to know and love, I'm awfully stubborn, especially when it comes to skiing, and I didn't stay out of my ski boots for long. Sure, I felt sorry for myself for a few weeks, and I decided to fill the skiing void by skiing in the metaverse, but I ended up getting a serious case of cyber sickness and felt much, much worse. So I waited for about 20 days, right until the end of May, and then decided I needed to keep my turns all year streak going, and went against the doctor and physio's orders, stuck a ski boot on my painful ankle, and skied down Cypress Mountain. I'll do anything to keep that streak going. Skiing is almost the only thing that I do, but I had a side quest I wanted to complete this summer, and I had lost some gear, including 2 ski poles and 2 Insta360 Ace Pro 2s on the mountain last winter during spring break. So I went off to find it. I thought the snow would be at the perfect spot and melted just enough that I could dig up or find my pole somewhere in the Harmony area. And believe it or not, I walked down and right away managed to find my ski pole with my Ace Pro 2 on it. I was so freaking lucky. Side quest, an absolute success. Now, when you're injured, you have to really celebrate the small successes, and I finally was feeling better hiking around and could almost get my ski boot on without extreme pain. So I decided it was time to go for a June ski tour with the one and only Adventure Rob. We found a perfect spot to harvest corn, and on the drive up the logging road, we found a rental SUV in the ditch and tugged 2 girls out using the winch. We headed up to the top of the road, hiked up. I managed to get my foot in a ski boot, and we skied an incredibly fun summer lap on the way down. The ankle just survived, but in order to stay off snow, Laura and I thought it was best if I just ship myself right off the continent and we head to Europe. Laura and I spent 3 weeks in Europe, mainly avoiding snow, but still hiking, getting it stronger, doing lots of stretching, and of course, drinking lots of wine and beer because that aids in the recovery process. It was a great time, but the second the plane's tires hit the tarmac, I was back hiking and skiing again, trying to lock in my July turns. My July choice was actually very, very poor at first, and the first line I had back from Europe was miserable, but hey, skiing. Since that last summer ski day was so unsatisfying, I tried to create the most satisfying ski day possible by heading out skiing with the world's first ever backcountry rope tow. So I missed riding a ski lift so much, I decided to bring a ski lift out with me into the mountains in the middle of the summer. I got in contact with the founders of Zoe Engineering and went out with one of the founders, Eric, to test out the world's first ever portable ski rope tow, and to my surprise, it worked amazing. This tool is the funnest thing ever, and we had the best day ripping laps in the backcountry with their new rope tow technology. I continued to ride the high of summer skiing and was craving a cool R, so I hit up Spider Mark and we headed into one of my favorite summer zones to ski the deepest sun cups in the county. They're the size of moon craters, but we had a freaking blast, and it's some of the funnest views in skiing. Following that day, Subalpinism Sid got quite jealous of Spider Mark and I's adventure, so we decided to head out for another ski. We ended up doing a very beautiful hike, but didn't really get much skiing in, although we did get turned up pretty good and enjoyed the crisp swim in a tarn with a ski helmet on. After executing a not so satisfying ski mission, I once again was searching for an area that would create a much more satisfying summer skiing experience. Laura and I went hiking all over BC and the PNW to try and find a pocket of snow that would suit the needs I needed to be filled. And honestly, it took a while, but we found a trail that had some reviews saying there were big, scary snow crossings, and snow crossings means skiing in my eyes. So I found the perfect August line and absolutely sent it, savoring each and every turn. Now it's September, and you know what that means. The start of a new ski season. Fingers crossed my ankle can stay in one piece this year, and I can't wait for the snow to start falling. See you on the snow. Stay spicy, folks.